قراءة في مذكرات لورين بوث. لورين بوث صحفية بريطانية من مواليد عام 1967. اشتهرت في العالم كناشطة في مجال حقوق الإنسان. حصلت على الجنسية الفلسطينية عام 2008. دونت مذكراتها لتسلط الضوء على رحلتها التي اعتنقت خلالها الإسلام.
So in 2012, I was touring a lot in America because I'd accepted Islam and I was giving a lot of talks about my journey to Islam. And I remember in my mind, it's somewhere in Texas, in a large hall full of Muslims, and where I just presented my journey to Islam for the Muslim Legal Fund of America. And then it was a question and answer session. And a little boy was going, "Oh, me." So I said, "Yeah, let's take a question from the little boy over there." And he got the mic and he said, in perfectly loud vocabulary, perfectly loudly, he said, "Excuse me, did any of that actually happen?" And everyone was like, "Shh." And I said, "No, what an amazing question." Because what I'd been talking about was so extraordinary to the people listening that it couldn't possibly have happened. So I thought about this and I thought that's really interesting that to me it's just what's happened that's brought me to Islam and the people that I've met. But to people listening, it's an extraordinary story. So I better check if it's all true. Have I elaborated, exaggerated? What's been going on? So when I got home that weekend, back in the UK with my two daughters, Alexandra and Holly, we went through, pulled a drawer out, and it's my famous drawer, as it's called, because it has all of my diaries in. And I put them all out on the floor and I said, "Right, girls, pick one up and start reading." And they were roaring with laughter. And, I started writing diaries aged 11 and they were really bad. I mean, it was as bad as got out of bed, went to school, had dinner, went to bed. What is that? But it did get better. So when I came to the parts about thinking about faith, meeting Muslims, traveling in the Muslim world, accepting faith, asking questions, reading the Quran, they were in a specific set from 2005 to now. And it was all in there. The people I'd met, what I'd done, what they'd said, I'd put it all down. And that's why I remembered it, because when you write things down, anybody who's studying knows, right? It's one thing to think something, but until you've written it down and put that visualization into a process, it won't stick. And so I thought I better use these because I think it's useful. And I wrote the book really for me at 20 or 30. As someone who has lost belief. Now, not somebody from the West, they can be from anywhere in the world, but someone who's doing well in their life but doesn't know why they get up in the morning. Who has got, maybe have wealth, they've got, when you've got your basics met, right? Most of us in the modern context, I'm not going to say West or East, because if you might be in Singapore or you can be in New York, you have this blessed level of living, which is we have enough food, we're not in a place of war, thanks God, and we have work, our family's okay. So then we start thinking, what is the point in all of this? I can go out. I was in a stage in my 30s, for example, where, and this is really scary to think about now, but again, I kept it in my diaries, where I literally thought that if I said something enough times, I could visualize it into being. Think about that. Think about that arrogance. I only had to say, I want that job, walk in, flash my smile at the editor. I'm a good writer too, don't get me wrong, okay? You have to do the work, but I knew how to play the game. And bingo, there was the job, there was the husband, there was the house in France, there was the swimming pool. Everything was going swimmingly. And then catastrophe struck. And I really wanted to to write a spiritual book about what happens when catastrophe strikes, and you have to make sense of, why am I alive at all? You know, those basic questions. Where do you go from there? What do you believe in a God? When you haven't asked the questions, nobody approaches each other and says, hey, have you thought about God today? Because that would be a bit sort of proselytizing. But we don't even say, beyond, are you okay? You know, we don't even question about depression. Why are people depressed? They're depressed because they don't know why they're alive and they don't want to die. So fear of death, love of this life, the two toxins together are a recipe. And I'll add a third one, because I was an actor. And I'll go through some of the things in the book in a minute. But just to say that I was trained as an actor to rely on the applause of others. And it's not the same kind of applause that you get from doing good. I don't believe that you're in a bad state if you're a people pleaser. I think pleasing people from the Muslim context is a brilliant, brilliant place to be. I'm talking about when you've got a little bit of fame and you need people to recognize your brilliance. Wow, that is really, really exhausting. So I had wealth, I had celebrity, and I had what I needed. And and this book isn't about, oh, I was so depressed and I was always looking. I was not looking for faith. Faith found me. So I really wanted to speak to people around the world who don't know why they're alive, and give a view on why I accepted Islam. Alhamdulillah. I think I'll read a bit now. Let's have a look. I think I'll go back to... So it starts really as well... So the book starts with my background, and especially I've been told by readers that it's the iconic figure of my father who really stands out. And my father and I had a very fractious relationship for a long time. But you know, there are icons in your life who just leave you with those couple of lines that you can anchor yourself to. And I realised writing the book that my dad was that pivotal. So he's there in the beginning and he's there in the end. And he was a very famous actor, Anthony Booth, very well known for his leftist stance. You know, come the revolution, he'd say, come the revolution, get north of the Watford Gap. It's an English part of England. Otherwise, we're going to slaughter the Southerners, he used to say. We're going to finish them because we've had enough of this poverty. So, you know, we were very much come the revolution. But in the book, I recall one specific incident where I was 11 years old and we were poor. Well, I thought we were poor. You know, my father as an actor hadn't worked for a number of years. And, you know, sometimes you'd look in the fridge and there was an old onion and a beer can, and you'd go, what's for dinner? Nothing. Oh, okay. Go and eat with your friends. Oh, okay. You know, so I thought we were poor. So one day I was in the bathroom and we only used to have newspaper. We couldn't afford toilet paper. And I thought, I'm going to speak to my dad about this. I'm really tired of being poor. And I went in and I said to him, Dad, I don't like being poor. Now, my dad had grown up in Liverpool in the 1940s, in the Second World War, where there was real poverty, where there was the Blitz, bombs falling and outside toilets. And here we were in a 10-room apartment in one of the best places in the whole of the United Kingdom, Hampstead Garden suburb. And I'm standing there going, I hate being poor. But he didn't tell me off. He said, why do you think we're poor? And I said, because we use newspaper instead of toilet paper. And he said, what newspaper? I said, well, we use The Guardian. He said, there you go. The Guardian is the newspaper of aspiration. If we used the Mirror or the Sun, two lower class tabloids, then we'd be poor. Why? Because it's not where you start, it's where you end up. And you're white, you're middle class, you're in Europe, you're quite bright, you've already won the lottery of life. And that is, to me, you know, really the epitome of gratitude, subhanAllah. So my dad turned out to be, surprising to me, to be honest, a bit of the star of the book. Not many people know, by the way, that I was a clown for a number of years. There's certainly many Zionists who think who still refer to me as a clown. But I was specifically someone who used to juggle because I trained as an actress. And again, that puts you in a very, it puts you in a place where you can empathise with other people, but you're underdeveloped emotionally yourself. Yeah. So I'd say that as an actor, you've got a third eye. You're always in a studio. So like this. So a lot of times I would, actors are funny people. We're at one removed because we're going, oh, this would be a good scene. I could write this. I wonder what you're going to say next, right? So you have a little bit of disconnection. But at the same time, we can be undeveloped as human beings because we're selfish. You're trained to crave attention. You have to impress people to get every single job, and not with a CV, but it might be your smile, it might be your height, it's random things. So it's really, the whole entertainment industry makes very, very broken people. Look at Hollywood. Look at the rise in suicides. So I was really that kind of fractured person relying on being cheered. And so how did I come to be a human rights activist? This is Qadr of Allah. And I think one of the most touching parts of my book is about giving birth. And I'll read a section to you now. So, as human beings, I realised as I reached maturity, which these days is about 35, that there are certain linchpin moments that really rip through the material world and force us into a spiritual frame of mind. We're born, we don't remember that, but that's a huge moment of transition. Falling in love, that moment when you look into the eyes of the one you love and you think, this is what it's all about. It's about you and me, this incredible feeling. And for women, when you give birth, that moment, if you don't wake up at that moment, wow, for me, I refused all pain relief because I wanted to do it. And I describe it in the book. I begin the chapter 6, Just Breathe, with a quote by Laura Stavo-Harm. She says, "We have a secret in our culture. It's not that birth is painful, it's that women are strong." So I describe how I felt giving birth. I was conscious of my lungs moving in and out, jagged, rasping. My heart was thudding in my chest with hidden exertions of which I was not even fully aware. I couldn't finish the swear word I'd started. Slow down, I puffed to my husband who was driving the car. I remember the view. A vista I'd walked across hundreds of times since childhood. A green field swooping down into a valley. The small cottages of the Vale of Health in Hampstead, so named because the people survived the plague there. The long stone pathways leading into woods where ancient royals once hunted deer. Inside me, a child wanted to be born. My body wasn't a theme park, as I'd always thought it had been. It was a blessing, a shrine to creation, a complex mass of unimaginable processes brought together in perfect order. Blood, bones, flesh and skin on a tiny human inside me. And this really was a moment when I realised that there's so much more, that somehow the air feeds the trees and the trees feel us, and it was this existential moment of beauty of which I was a tiny part, and that for me was an opening. And soon after, going through my diaries, I realised people always ask what's the moment when you woke up to other people's choices and perhaps began your journey to Islam. And for me, it was when I was breastfeeding my daughter, when she was 10 days old in November 2010. I was breastfeeding my daughter, and a photograph came on the TV screen, and it was a young boy, and his back was to us, and right in front of him was a tank. Now, if you or I faced a tank, if a tank came through this room, I'm running that way. But this little boy, he looked so small, but the news presenter said he was 15. He was leaning in to the tank, and in his hand was a stone. And I was watching, and when you've given birth, you're like, you just want the universe and everything to be kind, and children to do well, and there to be no pain. And there was this new baby, and there was this boy. And in my mind, I heard a mother saying, Wayne Varys, what do you mean he's not at school? And that boy was Faris O'Day, and I didn't know it at the time, but 10 days after that photograph was taken, he was shot in the neck by an Israeli sniper, and he died on the floor of Rafah refugee camp, protecting the women of his area with a stone, the people of his area with a stone. But that really stayed with me, because I thought, I don't know what the world is really about, and I don't get why I as a human being should sympathise with tanks, not boys from refugee camps. And so that really, I write in the book about that propelling me to go to Palestine for the first time. And I called this book Finding Peace in the Holy Land, because there's several meanings for the Holy Land, isn't there? There's the Holy Land as the Muslims understand it, which is, of course, Mecca. And that is one of our holy lands. And then for the three world faiths, there's the Holy Land of Sham and the centre of Jerusalem, Al-Quds. And then there's the Holy Land of the heart and the soul and the connectivity and the asking of the divine for forgiveness. So I really wanted to explore that, finding peace in the Holy Land, in this book. So the central part of it, I'd say a third of the book, is about my visits to Palestine, what I saw there, how the people were so kind that I really had to pick up a Quran eventually, and picking up the Quran for the first time and opening it, what that experience is like for someone who doesn't believe in changing your behaviour for God. What Surah Baqarah did to me, I explore that. And I've written it in a way that is accessible for Muslims and non-Muslims. And I wrote it, as a reminder to myself as well, because even after 10 years, you can wake up and you do your Fajr, but you forget why you're Muslim, and you forget what a blessing it is. And actually, by the grace of Allah, when I pick it up, I'm like, wow, you're Muslim. And Allah allowed you to do this, subhanAllah. I'm going to read a little bit now from the end of, towards the end of the book. I talk about the first night as a Muslim. So remember, I'd gone from being a hard drinking weekend partying, because at this point I was 40 years old and I had children. But for mainstream people, you have to do these things to stop the boredom of, life. You self-medicate. You don't know why you're there, and you're supposed to have fun, but what is fun? So you get more and more, involved in perhaps alcohol or whatever your addictions are. It can be binge watching soap operas, by the way. I don't think that's particularly healthy, although it won't affect your kidneys quite the same as alcohol. But that was my thing. And then I took my Shahada after a very spiritual experience in a mosque, one Ramadan. And this describes my first night as a Muslim. It was 10 p.m. on a Friday night, and my first weekend as a Muslim stretched ahead of me. The girls were visiting relatives, so I was alone. What did I do with my time, now drinking and meeting friends? Haram was out of the question. On my bedside table was a copy of the Quran in English that I'd taken from France. Despite it being there since my return from Iran, I hadn't opened it. I opened it now to chapter 2, Surah Baqarah. I was face to face with the same verses which had judged me so harshly 5 years earlier. There in Arabic, and besides that in English, were the words which once upon a time had made me want the book to be as far out of sight as possible. I read out loud, "This is the book wherein there is no doubt, a guidance to those who are al-muttaqun, the pious and righteous persons who fear and love Allah, who believe in the unseen and perform as-salah and spend from what we've provided for them, and who believe in that which has been sent down to you and in that which was sent before you, and they believe in certainty in the hereafter. They are the true guidance. They are on true guidance from their Lord, and they are the successful." My new faith didn't mean passive muttering. It meant I had to take action. Allahu Akbar. I realised soon after writing the book that we have to be in the mainstream now, communicating what it is that we love about Islam, reaching out to people with its message of kindness, humanitarianism, of empathy. And so I joined a team and we made this book into a play. And the play was called Accidentally Muslim. And in 2019, it played 30 times at the world's largest arts festival in Edinburgh to 900 people, the majority who were not Muslim. And the feedback was immense. The feedback was, it's made me think. I had some prejudice about Muslims. I'm going to have to revisit who I am, because I put down my prejudice in here, my mockery of Muslims, you know, before I came to Islam. And I think by being blunt, I think by being honest, we've got a real opening here to communicate what it is to live as a believer, what it is to be a soul passing through this life, and what it is to have success, and then no success in that term, and then real success, inshallah. So this is about success, failure, and success. Yeah. Inshallah, you'll enjoy it. The play is called Accidentally Muslim, and if Allah wills, we'll be touring it in a city near you, and reviving the spirit inside us of gratitude, like the woman taught me in Rafah refugee camp in 2008 when I went. And all praises to Allah, and all mistakes are my own. And hope you enjoy my book, Finding Peace in the Holy Land. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.